Ashley Winters. Welcome to Speak Up St. Louis.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, this is the first episode, and so it's really exciting to have you on to talk all about just journalism, writing perspective, and so much more.
I'm so ready to talk about it. It's so interesting being on this side of storytelling because I'm usually the one that's asking all the questions, and now I'm in the hot seat.
Right. Well, you're not in the hot seat. This is gonna be good conversation.
It is.
Yeah. You know, I ain't trying to get you today. So
Maybe tomorrow.
maybe tomorrow or the next day and the next day. So yes, I guess we can go ahead and get started though. And so if you want to just tell the people who you are and what you been up to, what you do.
What I do. So let me just go in there and be very St. Louis. What's up, y'all? I'm so St. Louis, born and raised. I love my city, absolutely love my city. I'm a reporter for the St. Louis American newspaper. I'm also a published children's book author. So writing is my gift. It's my way of telling stories.
That's what's up. And so I guess where we can just really start at is I'm curious on, you have this, you're doing the writing and things like that for the American. So I guess I'm curious on where did that love for writing begin at for you? Has this been something that as a kid that's always been something that you've been doing, or did it just kind of bloom and blossom at a certain point in life?
So I am so grateful that the love for writing was something that was dropped in my spirit at a very young age. I was about 5 years old, and I knew that I wanted to be a writer. I didn't know what kind of writer I wanted to be, but I knew that I wanted to be a writer. So it's just been something that's been in me. I remember as a child, before I could learn to write letters, I would just scribble on notepads and make up a story and read them to my mom or my aunts or my grandmother. So writing has just always been something I love doing.
Do you remember any of those writings as a kid?
The stories, my mom, I love her. She still has, I guess it's my first book that I ever made from kindergarten. And looking at it, these were just scribbled pictures of me, my illustration, and my kindergarten teacher wrote down what my story was about. And so I guess that's my first book, you know.
But that's really cool though, just the process of your mother seeing something that brought you a lot of passion, a lot of joy, and taking the time to make, to keep those as keepsakes and things like that. So we're going to have to talk to Mama Winters. And
yeah, we're going to have to bring her in because she definitely, she has it in this box, and it's got the hole punches. And my kindergarten teacher tied the strings, with the yarn to keep the pages intact. But it's something that I look at and I'm like, wow, I'm actually doing something that I've always wanted to do. And I feel very blessed by that because not a lot of people get to do that. Not a lot of people get to say, I am doing what I am passionate about. I am doing what I love. Some people have to work a job that pays the bills, but not necessarily feeds their soul.
Feeding the soul. And so I guess as we're thinking about how this passion grew for you, what was kind of those first steps? So, you talked about how you began to start writing as, a young child and things like that. But when did that passion for you, when did you see that passion turn into something of, I can really be able to utilize my voice in that way?
High school. Shout out to McClure Senior High School, the original McClure. I'm a comic baby.
It's always one person that got to say they are the original.
I'm the original, honey. So high school freshman year, I took an elective, and it was journalism writing. And I took the elective. I was in the classroom with some freshmen, sophomore, juniors, seniors, and it was just so cool to just be like, wow, I'm taking a class about journalism. I'm writing about, different things that, and gosh, his name is blanking right now. He was the basketball coach. I can see him, he was super tall, dark brown hair. That was my teacher, and that's when I was like, this is something I really want to do. I really want to be a news reporter. And so that was my first taste. And after that, I started looking at different schools, different colleges, definitely outside of St. Louis, because I did not want to stay here, even though my family was like, go to Mizzou. And I was like, nah.
Can't do it.
That ain't for me. So yeah, high school, my freshman year, I got my first taste of journalism.
And so as you were, being inspired not only by your teacher, were there any other individuals, whether being in media or in writing, that you looked to and you were like, yeah, I want to be like them?
I can say that watching the news, Oprah, gosh, gotta love her. Like, who didn't look up to her? She was definitely one of the ones that I was like, man, I want to do that. But I know I didn't want to be in front of the camera. I just want to be the person that tells the stories.
Right.
I'm super shy.
I could never tell.
Right? Super shy. But when I decide to come out of my shell, you getting all of Ashley. All of it. All of me. You're like right there on the spot. So watching Oprah, I was like, man, that's so dope. She's so tight. But I definitely didn't want to be in front of the camera. Like broadcast, not for me. Like I could do podcast, radio. Long as you can't see me, then I'm all good. Because I get shy and I freeze up.
And there's nothing wrong with that either.
Right.
We all have our little quirks and things about us where you're like, yeah, I like that, but we put that to the side.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm curious about too is, as you're building out this skill set too, the process of writing obviously has changed over time as well for you in regards to how you think about it, what's important, the setting even as well too. So could you break down, like, what does your writing practice look like overall?
So my writing practice looks like, what are stories that are important to me? And what are some of these stories that are not being talked about? If I, as an everyday person, what am I curious about, especially in my own city, in my own neighborhood, in my own state, within my own community, within the Black community, within the brown communities, indigenous folks, like, what is being talked about and who do I need to talk to? How do I write this story and keep it authentic? How do I write this story with pride and self-respect without demeaning anyone or even abusing their story and making it something that's salacious? How do I go about that? So whenever I think about a story, I put myself in the shoes of the folks that I'm going to be talking to.
I like that, because I think one thing that comes with that as well too is a level of community trust. For you, obviously being a reporter and journalist, as well as being a community member as well too, there has to be, I'm assuming, and I know me and you've talked about this before, the balance between obviously the ethics of what it means to be able to really capture an authentic story, while at the same time being able to allow for a level of community trust and building that over time. Because if nobody trusts you, you don't get no stories.
Yeah, so one example that comes to mind, I did a story on Black tour coffee shops. So I talked to a number of black and brown coffee shops, and one particular coffee shop I went to is called LD's. Great place, great coffee, great food. It's right at Page and Grand.
Mm-hmm. Not too far away from here.
Yeah, so I walked in. I've never been in there. It's obviously a place that people go to hang out, get coffee, get food, catch up. It's that neighborhood spot. And I walked in, and it was like eyes were like, new person, who are you? And, I'm walking in, I'm like, hi, I'm Ashley Winters, can I speak with the owner? And they was like, who you? I don't know you. What you want to come in here and talk to him for? And I was like, whoa, let me pause for a second. Let me reintroduce myself. I'm a reporter with the St. Louis American. Okay, so why you want to talk to him? So it's just, it's not just with communities that are outside of my own that have trust issues. It's communities within my own that are like,
right.
why should I trust you? And I get that, some news outlets are not trustworthy. Some stories have been told that these individuals trusted the reporter, trusted, this media outlet in the end to be screwed and to be have their story told in a way that lacked respect, to have their story told in a way that took out all of the meat and just left the negative, So I totally get folks not trusting the news. I'm not one of those reporters that say, oh, that's just a bunch of baloney, I don't understand why people don't trust the news. No, I totally get it, So whenever I find myself in those situations, the first thing I do is let them know who I am, who I'm affiliated with, and why this story is important, and build on that relationship. Thankfully, it didn't take long, LD came out and was like, what's up, hey, when you want to come in, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And then it was, so when the story come out, when we going to have our picture, once they warmed up to me, it was all about, can I tell you some more? Like I couldn't, express enough how important it is for reporters to make sure that their relationship is solid.
Yeah, being solid, because there's a level of excitement that comes when folks get to see their work. And I imagine that when people have the opportunity to speak with you, to share in that moment, to share in the process of what you're trying to build, and then they get to see it printed, there's a level of excitement. And also, like what you're talking about too, there's a new level of trust that's been done, because now you've shared their story with people that may have not come in contact with them, or now as having a level of interest, or just even the simple part of when family members see their own family members in the paper. That is always a level of joy. So what is that like? You touched on it some, but I'm curious on for the individuals when they get that first story in the paper, what is that like for them?
And this is not to toot my own horn. This is not to come off arrogant, but confident in when, I write something and I get the message and they're like, Ashley, thank you so much. You told my story in such a way that I wouldn't be able to do it myself, or thank you for, treating my story with so much respect. And so they're always excited. Like a story that I did on a restaurant called Guys with the Fries. It's right at Page and Kings Highway. As you notice, I do a lot of my stories in the city, black neighborhoods. I support. I support my people. I support black businesses. And one of the owners at the time, tagged a post, and he was like, folks in my neighborhood, when we in the paper, it's always for something negative. It's always about crime or this. He was like, so to see us in the paper and all of his family like under it, like, congratulations, we see you, we love you, we're so happy for you. It makes me feel good to know that I was able to be at least a part of something like that. Somebody seeing somebody from the same neighborhood that they came from be in the paper about something positive.
Right. And I think that's really exciting of what you're talking about, of this perspective shift, because a lot of the times when we turn on the TV and we look at the media of St. Louis, or even in the sense of individuals' perspectives on St. Louis that don't even live here, it's automatically the gun violence, it's automatically the robbing, the looting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And totally glosses over the individuals and the champions of these neighborhoods that have been holding down St. Louis for so long, and that have made impact and strides without anybody ever giving them a thank you, even just a level of gratitude outside of the work that they do. And so I think it is very interesting, this shift, especially on the stories that you're covering, on the shift of black perspective, just black people living. And I think that's really interesting too. I mean, one, just because we're at the Contemporary Art Museum as well too. Because we're at the Contemporary Art Museum St. Louis. I think it is also really interesting because when you started talking about that, I automatically even just started thinking about like work of Kehinde Wiley, and just really thinking about black folks in these triumphant perspectives rather than the traditional way. I don't even know if I want to call that traditional. So let me take that back. But in the way that the media's perception of us has really, yeah, in a negative, very nasty perspective. I'm just going to say it how
Say
it is.
what it is, right?
It is what it is. Like, why is it that we got to wait till the last 5 minutes of the news to be able to hear anything noteworthy or exciting or even positive that's happening in St. Louis?
In all honesty, one, because we live in a twisted society. Unfortunately, negativity sells. It's just like being over sexualized. These things are what folks want to pay attention to. These are the topics that gets the click. These are the topics that, spread and go viral faster than anything I can think of. And so it would, unfortunately, news is a business now. It's not about being a watchdog of the community anymore. It's about a business. It's about keeping the lights on at that station. It's about making sure that you can pay your employees, which I totally get. It is a business. But if broadcast put everything positive first, no one will watch it. So that's why it's last. And in a way, it is good, that old saying, leaving things off on a good note. However, do I think there should be more positive stories instead of just that one positive story at the end of the news segment? Absolutely. It should be. Because not only is it making us as a people look bad, but our city as a whole. It's no secret that folks are leaving St. Louis by the numbers. And they have their reasons for leaving St. Louis by the numbers. But if we start putting out those stories about the unsung heroes that we have here and celebrate them and show that the work that they are doing that affects everyone around us in our region, even in the Metro East, I think people would be more satisfied with the news. Outsiders outside of St. Louis and Metro East would be more satisfied with the news. I hear on a daily, how come the news is just so negative? It's because with the society that we live in. If you don't like it, start writing these letters, start sending these emails, start calling out these news segments and say, hey, listen, you all are telling this story about this group of young folks, but you just told a story about how they're just constantly breaking in cars. Okay, let's talk about the kids who aren't doing things like that.
Start your own podcast.
Right?
Right.
So it's unfortunate. It's just the society that we live in, the times that we're in where folks don't want to hear that stuff anymore. For whatever reason, they're not interested.
Yeah, and I think for Trey and myself, and then also the origins of the podcast was to be able to tell stories like that, is to be able to tell stories that are authentic to St. Louis, because we know that, of course, there are things that we want to happen here in St. Louis that could be done better. I think everybody's well aware of those things, but it's also making sure that there is a healthy balance in regards to the individuals that are really working to make St. Louis a better place. And so that's why, for me at least, it's like, that's the reason I do this.
Yeah.
And the reason why we're having this conversation is to be able to highlight some of those things. And so to kind of add to that, because, obviously, you work at the St. Louis American, and we'll get into that a bit as well, too. I'm just curious on, with us only being in 2023 and not that far removed from what is the future of the pandemic, I'm curious on how that changed your writing practice as a whole, more so from maybe even a personal level, but also to working in the community as well, too, as much as you do.
So pre-pandemic, there was absolutely no need for a Zoom interview unless this person was out of state, out of the country, out of the city, right? We're in 2020 and we're in March of 2020, and boom, everything shuts down. How are we going to tell about this pandemic that we're in if I can't talk to people? Now we're in the age of Zoom. And it's a gift and a curse. It was a gift then because I can protect myself, and the person that I'm talking to can also protect themselves and not spread germs or anything like that. However, I'm very old school, and I like to sit and talk with people one-on-one. I'm very detailed in my stories. I like to talk about your body language. I like to include your facial expression, what the space looked like that we're in, you know. And so that changed so much how I wrote my stories, because I couldn't do that. I couldn't bring the readers into the space that I was in with everything being over Zoom. And so it made me write from a different perspective of more about the story and less about the person, if that makes sense. More about, you know, the bullet points, but not the meat and the potatoes. You know,
the essence.
Right. I think those things in the story are very important.
And I never thought about it that way, in the sense of what you just said about the body language, the eye contact, the setting, and how that all plays into a well put together story. Never thought of it like that, and how big of a difference, like, because it's almost in a way, when you were just talking about it, it seems like it went from this very three-dimensional space to 2D, flat.
Very flat, extremely flat. And that was so hard for me to write, because I'm a very creative person. I have a very vivid imagination. And so when I paint a picture, I want the whole picture to be painted, not just the corner of the frame. And so that's what Zoom did for me. It only allowed me to tell just the corner of the story, the corner of the frame, instead of the whole thing.
So do you have more of a balance now, just overall, just being in 2023?
No. Honestly, I couldn't wait for everything to be lifted. I was one of those people like, yes, let's get back to life. Let's get back to reality, because I couldn't do it anymore. I want to be in the same room with you. I want to be able to be face to face with you. I don't want to do it over Zoom. I don't want to do it over the phone. I get it if you're nervous, and I completely respect that. I always leave that as an option. When I send out my email and say, hey, can I talk with you about this? We can do this via Zoom, over the phone, or in person. And 9 times out of 10, people were like, in person. Because we miss that human connection. And we need that to tell a good story. How can you tell a good story if you're not connecting with the people? If you're not connecting with the person that you're talking about? Like, that's like if me and you hanging out, right, and we're chit-chatting, how much of a connection of it if it's over a screen?
Very little.
Very little connection.
Unless you know them on a real deep relationship aspect.
Exactly. And that's very far in between with folks that I interview. I try and, talk with people that I don't know, that I don't have a connection with, because I'm building a connection and I'm learning something new. It's boring to talk to people that you know. There's no fun in that.
There's no excitement.
There's no excitement.
Change. You know everything.
Exactly. So when everything got lifted, I was like, yes, now I can come and see you and be invited in your space. When I'm covering restaurants, it would suck to have to talk to the chef through Zoom.
And you can't smell the food.
Right. I can't smell the food. I can't describe how the restaurant looks.
Right. You can't even get a taste of the food.
I can't do anything. It's so bland. It is the blandest chicken on the planet. It's terrible that I cannot express to my readers the type of space that I'm in, the type of sights that I'm seeing, the feeling that this atmosphere gives me. That's what creates a good story. It's bringing folks into where you're at so they can see it possibly through your eyes. So
I don't know, for some reason, as you were saying that, I just automatically in the back of my mind, all I heard was reading rainbow. It was just taking folks to these different spaces and times and telling these very authentic and visual
look.
Right?
It's in a book, Reading Rainbow.
I don't know. And then after that came Wishbone for me. I was like, what's the story, Wishbone?
Ghostwriter.
Yes. But it's true though. It's, when I think of even just from just to shift it a little bit of what's a good book. And I'm like, a good book for me is something that takes me to a totally different place.
Boom. You said it.
It's right there.
It takes you out of whatever reality you're in. And I think a good story, depending on what the topic is, if it's a call to action story, my words cannot be flat. If there is something that is horrendous going on in the city of St. Louis and it's time for us to get on our feet and do what needs to be done to create this change, my words cannot be flat. So if it's, God forbid, we have another, racial tension uprising, and it was during the pandemic, and I have to talk to these people through Zoom, my words are going to fall flat because I can't see what's going out there in the streets. I can't see what's going out there in the community. Unfortunately, when we had that school shooting at the Art High School, and I was down there, can you imagine if that was during the middle of the pandemic? And talking with those parents over Zoom or those kids over Zoom. And not to over traumatize or make it more dramatic than what it is, but certain stories like that deserve a certain amount of impact, a certain style of wording. Intention,
care.
Exactly. And so when you can't make that human connection through a screen, it's going to read like that. And so I don't think it would do that type of story justice.
So going back real quick, because you had kind of already touched on it a little bit, about just racial tension, and I'm curious on how not only just racial tension, but political tension, not necessarily in the pandemic, because we can talk more current about this. How has that changed your writing perspective, how you tell stories and things like that? Because now it seems like every word anybody says can go from this small little moment to blown totally out of proportion if you're not careful. And so how do you navigate this space where things are very heightened, and for some folks dangerous? It's dangerous.
You'll get canceled in a heartbeat.
I mean, not even canceled.
Or killed.
Being a journalist is dangerous.
It's dangerous.
I mean, it's probably always been that. Like
it has.
But it's just for some reason I think it's
gotten worse.
Yeah.
And I blame this idea of anybody can be a journalist. No, that's not true. That's like saying anybody can be a doctor. Would you want me to operate on you and not have the experience? Absolutely. Hell no, you wouldn't.
I don't think I want Dr. Winters working on me. I'm not going under.
You know what I'm saying? So would you want someone who is not qualified and not trained to be a reporter to tell the stories of what's going on in the communities? No matter what the community is or who lives in it, if they are not trained, if they don't have the ethics, the proper schooling behind it, would you want them to tell your story? No. And so I think over time, society has become very laxed on how stories are told and who tells them. This idea of, fake news and alternative facts created this flood of, I can say whatever I want. And if this is on my platform, if it's on your Facebook page or your Twitter, and you're putting out these things that are not true, and it's enough to get a group of people riled up, it's dangerous. Yeah. It is extremely dangerous for certain folks to have this idea that I can tell these stories. It's dangerous. And again, social media is a gift and a curse, but in this sense, there are certain platforms that have created these spaces for fake news, and I'm going to use that term because it is fake, some of it is, to be just gone viral. It's dangerous.
And it makes it harder for folks to be able to find the truth.
Boom. It makes it so much harder. But what I am grateful for is being in a space like the St. Louis American, right? The oldest black newspaper in the state of, Missouri. It is just hands down top notch. It's always winning awards nationally. You know, it's such an honor to be in a space that holds so much history, and a little intimidating at times. I have to make sure that I'm on top of my game. But when it comes to making sure that I'm staying politically correct, I believe in asking questions. And so if I'm writing on a topic that I'm not that familiar with, on a certain community that I'm not that familiar with, if I know someone who is a part of it, I'm going to call them and ask them and say, hey, is this word offensive? You know, if I say this, would someone, if I say this, would this hurt you? If I put it in this term, would that hurt someone that you love? So we have to be considerate, because, again, what we say and how we say it can either be a blessing or a curse. It can create a firestorm to give someone ammunition to attack another person, or it can create compassion and make you want to understand somebody who is not like you.
Well, since you also just touched on it some, for the individuals that might not know what the St. Louis American is, you want to just go ahead and give them the rundown?
Yeah. So the St. Louis American newspaper is the oldest Black-owned newspaper in the state of Missouri. It is one of the longest Black-owned newspapers nationwide. Started in the 1920s, and our publisher, Dr. Donald Suggs, has been our publisher for the longest of times, and super grateful for him. I'm just so blessed to be in that type of space, coming from other media outlets that were not Black-owned. I get to capitalize my B when I say Black.
I like that.
You know,
I get
and it's
to
not
capitalize
questioned.
my
I
B.
get to capitalize my B when I say Black. And
Black. Blickety black.
Blackety black. Like, right? Onyx Black. I get to do that. In other publications, I couldn't capitalize my B. And so I get to do that. That means so much to me. It means so much to me that I get to write these stories, and it's not questioned. It's not, well, why do you want to write about that? Or when I write it and it's, you know, they get it. They get why it's written in this manner. You know, the St. Louis American is all about promoting Black excellence. And I'm for it all day long. I'm for talking about our unsung heroes. I'm for talking about Black enterprise. I'm for talking about, you know, the folks who are doing good in the community. You know, I'm for all of that because we don't get to see it, you know, on the TV screen. We don't get to see it that often, even on bigger media outlets. So I'm so grateful to be a part of something that is the motto: promoting, celebrating Black excellence. I'm for it.
And I love the level of reverence that you talk about it with, in the sense of being able to be a part of that history. And so I guess, what do you feel like or more so, how your personal perspective has added to this history of the American? Because, I mean, you probably have a different perspective than your other colleagues and things like that. So what does that look like for you? And what do you think Ashley brings to the table when you got the pen in hand?
Man, that's such a on the spot question. So I would say that being a St. Louisan, I've lived all over St. Louis. I'm a DSEG kid, and for some people who don't know what that is, that means school choice. But back in the day, in the early 90s, a DSEG kid was the kids who lived in the city, who got bused out to the schools in South County, West County. You know, I was that kid in kindergarten, had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to school.
You were probably not a happy kindergartner.
Not a happy kindergartner. Not at all. I grew up on the north side. I grew up on the south side, lived in Ferguson. So I've literally lived all over St. Louis. So I bring a lot of that experience to our newsroom. So yeah, I think that's what I bring: my creativity, my perspective on my generation. Like in our newsroom, there's multiple generations. And so we have these great conversations of back in my day type of ordeal, or, some folks will say, well, your generation is doing this. What does this mean? We have a lot of that conversation. So one of my colleagues, she's not 30 yet. I'm 39. Dr. Suggs is 92. Some of the other folks are in their late 40s. My editor is, in his 60s. So there's a lot of different age ranges going around. And so I'm just like that person in the middle, where I'm not this young millennial. I'm not a Gen Xer, but I'm somewhere
right in
the middle. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And I like what you just said there too about the multi-generational, multi-background. What did you just call it? The newsroom? Is that what it's called? Is that the right term?
I say newsroom, but that's a very old school term, because I am old school. Like, I say newsroom. Some people just be like, oh, I'm at the office. Well,
Okay.
that's so bland.
Right.
That could be anything.
It's the
newsroom.
Right. We getting business done.
Yeah, we're writing stories.
Right. And so I guess what's really interesting about it is how you were just talking about individuals having different contexts, different languages, different words, and it's in a way which I probably makes the St. Louis American even more special, is that you all are really kind of building new language within language. There's going to be different words that you're not using that your colleagues aren't, and being able to put full stories together, not just from the reporter to the individual that's having the conversation, but in the community, but also within the newsroom as well too, to be able to make sure that any individual, no matter what generation, can be able to connect to a story, and then and hopefully, if there's the opportunity, to be able to look more into the conversation that you all were having.
Yeah, because here's the thing. No community, no office space, no workspace is one-dimensional. We are 3D species, So when it's like, oh, this person said this, how do you take that? Well, I'm not offended. What did they mean by it? It's words are so powerful, and sometimes we give too much credit to them, and sometimes we don't give enough credit. And we, as a society, we need to find that balance. I think, and I keep saying, I'm sorry. I appreciate cancel culture. However, if we do not get in control of our own emotions, we are going to cancel out ourselves. We are going to take away the very thing that makes us human, and those are words. We are the only species on this planet that can speak words, and if we are not careful, we are going to end up shooting. We're going to hang our own self with that very rope that we are constantly hitting over somebody else over the head with.
Like you said earlier, it's going to be bland chicken.
It is going to be where we can't even say good morning without somebody getting offensive. Like that movie, Undercover Brother. Remember that one scene? The guy was like, good morning. He was like, good as in, good to see you. I feel like if we are not careful, we're going to become those people. And we have to make sure that we're not becoming those people. And so I'm grateful for the newsroom, because I have those multi-generational people there that can either check me or can learn from me, because I'm right in the middle.
I think that is incredible, to be in a workplace to where it's a space for growth, a safe space. Not many people can say that they can go to work and be in a safe place to share their thoughts, to be able to say, I disagree with you, and to be able to have a healthy conversation on where a project, a collaboration, whatever you want to call it, can go.
Yep.
So that's really powerful, and that speaks to what you all are doing at the St. Louis American, and being able to put out story after story after story. My grandma, Lottie Wade, we gonna put her name on it too.
Come on.
She reads the American every morning.
Yes. Come on, Grandma.
And that is a part of her morning ritual. When it's not on time, she has a fit. Not a huge one, but she like.
Is she calling up there?
I think she probably has called a couple times. But you know, she's going to be like, dang, like that is the way that I'm informed about what is going on around me. Because especially this day and age where there's so much content, you have to have these spaces where it's not everything. It's just this section. It's just
boom.
A snapshot of what's going on. And then from there, if there's something you're interested in, now you can go in and check out more.
There's such thing as content overload. Mm-hmm. I find myself experiencing that on a daily. I will immerse myself in so much news that I feel like my head is about to explode at times. And I have to make myself, not only just with local news, but national news and international news, because I'm like, I got to know what's going on. I got to know what's going on. I got to be able to be in the know. And it's a monster to always be in the know. There's not a healthy balance. And it's okay to not know something. It's okay to not know what's going on in Ohio. It's okay to not know what's going on in Guatemala. It's okay. But we have folks out there who would basically tar and feather you if you don't know what's going on. You get this shame of, how could you not know what's going on in your community? Right. Sometimes it's overload. And the good thing about the American is it gives you just that, enough to know the specifics of what you might want to be looking for. And like you said, if you want to know more, you have your options. Mm-hmm. The St. Louis American is very specific. It is a niche. You're going to get your religion. You're going to get your sports. You're going to get your lifestyle or live in it, and you're going to get your community news. You're going to get that every week. There is no skipping a beat. There is no, this week, we're not going to cover this, but just this. No, you're going to get the same. It may not be the same story. It's never going to be the same story unless it's a continuation. But you're going to get those topics. You're going to get those headlines focused on those areas. And sometimes that's all you need.
Hmm. And then I guess it's also, too, because you were talking about tar and feathered, it's probably also a case, too, because there's so much information out there that instead of sometimes folks being right, they want to be first. That
part. You said it. Now, I didn't think about that, but they want to be first to say, well, did you know? Have you heard? It is this sense of...
And it may not even be right.
Right.
And it's not even accurate.
Not even accurate, but humans are arrogant. We're arrogant creatures. We're buttholes.
We got egos.
Yeah. And sometimes we enjoy shaming others for not knowing something that we think we know. We shame others for not knowing something that we deem important.
Or we like to stick our chest out because...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you didn't know that?
Let me drop this jewel for you.
Yeah, and we thinking, and here's the thing, we really think we be dropping jewels. And it's like, nah, bruh, you're not dropping nothing. You're dropping a bunch of nonsense right now. With a hole in it, because it's completely worthless. Like, we are like that. And so I have to tell myself sometimes, turn it off. Put it on something mindless that doesn't matter. Like, yeah. Because I will beat myself up for not watching the news today. I'm immersed in the news every day. I need a break.
You're a part of it.
Right. I need a break sometimes, and that's okay. That's okay.
The world's going to keep turning.
Shit's still going to be happening.
And stories will still be out there.
And listen, as long as it's still happening, there's always going to be a story for me to write.
Right.
So even if I miss a day, that's okay.
Be all good.
It's going to be all good.
So in talking about the American, I guess to shift more back towards kind of more personal in a sense, I'm curious on, as an African-American woman here in St. Louis, does that have any part in regards to, I guess, how you talk about stories, whether it being from personal experience or just even thinking about the larger history of St. Louis as well, too, of how you begin to understand, I guess, your voice within this larger media, not just the St. Louis America, but just even this larger media machine. That, at least for some most parts in St. Louis, is not necessarily bringing to light a lot of the authentic stories that are happening here in St. Louis.
I don't, not to say, God, that's such a horrible habit.
It's okay. Just take a pause.
Just take
we'll cut
a
it
pause.
off.
Isn't that what the sign
Right.
says? Okay. So to answer your question, me thinking about my voice honestly has never come to mind. It is about the voice of the people that I'm talking to. It is about the voice of the people whose story I'm trying to get out there. I never think about, I'm not even a factor in these stories. Do I bring a personal experience? It depends on what the story is about, how I relate to it. But I never think about my voice because it's not about me. It's about the story itself and the people that it impacts. And it's not about my voice. I never bring my voice in. Journalism 101, never include yourself in the story.
There it is.
Unless your editor's like, you know what, go ahead. Good idea. But if not, you're not supposed to be the news. You report the news.
Right.
So I never think about my voice.
And that's probably to what you were talking about earlier in regards to everybody can't be a journalist and a reporter. That's probably the biggest shift right there, is taking your personal emotions out of a story to be able to give a true, to as much as possible, because, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that idea of unbiased sometimes seems like, can you actually do that?
It's murky.
You
idea,
can do your best.
That part. The idea is to try your hardest to remain unbiased. Of course, any story that you tell, you're not a robot. You're a person. You're going to feel some kind of way about it.
We're biased by nature.
Right. So the idea is just try your hardest. And you can tell when someone is feeling a story and when they're not. You can see the extra seasoning that will be added to it and when it's not. You can tell. It's just like when you can tell somebody is feeling you and when they're not. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with words. You can read it and be like, dang, they really put their heart and soul in this. And then really be like, oh, they just gave me the facts in, which is fine. But there was no oomph to it. That meat and potatoes. Yeah, they just gave you the vegetables.
I don't want that.
No, you don't want that.
Right, I got to have a couple pieces of beef in that.
Just something. Some chicken, some pork, something. So that you can tell.
Right.
And I've experienced it. I've read something and be like, dang, I guess I wasn't feeling that one, huh? Yeah.
But
you still got to write it.
And you didn't even know it until
I read it. But here's the irony. Somebody will read it and be like, dang, that was a good story, Ashley. Was it? Because that was not my best. But hey, if you like it, I love it.
Hey, everything can't be out the park.
Right? And the thing is that what somebody deemed not good, I may deem good. And what somebody, it's vice versa. Mm-hmm. I could have wrote something, I was like, dang, that was not that good. And the matter was like, man, you wrote the shit out of that piece. And I'm like, look at you. Did I? Okay. So, yeah. It's a style that maybe he likes better compared to my other styles,
So as we are, talking about the St. Louis American and some of the things that you are, talking about, give me a couple stories maybe that you recently have written.
Yeah, that's the correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay, just got to make sure. I had to get the head nod of approval from a couple people.
Yeah, the past tense, future tense, all of that jazz.
Right.
Yeah.
Give me a couple stories that you've written recently that you're like really proud of, or anything, or maybe not necessarily proud of, because that's subjective, but more so that you were excited about in regards to covering. Because I know that every time that I open the American, I'm looking for your name, and I, for me personally, I'd be like, I know that person. I know Ashley.
I know her.
Right.
She's famous. one that I was really, really excited about, an artist from St. Louis, but moved to Texas, AJ McQueen. Please write him down. Follow him on it. Folks, follow AJ McQueen on Instagram. When you do, let him know that Ashley sent you. He is the dopest. I don't even want to call him a rapper because he's more than that. Artist that's in the game right now. I mean, he's shutting everybody down. How I describe his music, if Common, old Kanye West, like first 3 albums, Kanye West.
Hold on, real quick side note.
I'm in trouble.
Real quick side note. Out of those 3 albums, which one is your favorite?
Ooh, okay, hold on. Okay, so we have College Dropout, Late Registration, Graduation. Damn.
I already know mine.
Okay, so I'm gonna put them in order.
Okay.
My number 1.
So wait, hold on, time out. If you're gonna put it at number 1, that automatically makes it your favorite, correct?
Yes, but
By
I have
far.
to put in my 2 and 3 because there's explanation behind it.
Okay.
So my number 1 out of his first 3 albums,
Okay.
because those
I'm
are
listening.
my favorites.
I'm listening. I'm not gonna look at you, but I'm gonna listen.
Late Registration is okay.
As your 1?
Yeah.
Graduation is not your 1?
No.
Whoa.
Late Registration is my 1. My
That's okay.
My 2 would be College Dropout. Graduation is last. And listen, it's not that it's bad.
Right. And I understand, but it's also too, for me, Graduation growing up was like the first CD that I had. So I like, because I don't remember when they came out, but I really remember Graduation. I think the first 2 albums were a little bit before, before that age.
How old are you, Q?
I'm 26 now.
Oh, sugar. That's why.
So when Graduation came out, that was...
You was a big boy.
Yeah. That was everything for me.
That makes sense.
I had that thing on rerun.
Okay, now it makes sense.
Yes.
See, it's not necessarily a generational thing, but an age difference.
Right.
So when College Dropout came out, that was my freshman year in college. And I was just like, yo, this dude is so dope. Late Registration came out. That was my sophomore year, sophomore or junior year. And then Graduation came out my senior year. So I was with Kanye my whole college experience. And I was living in Chicago at the time.
Okay.
I went to school in Chicago. Shout out to Columbia College in Chicago. Just got to put that out there. Best school in the world, hands down. That's where I got most of my experience, like my real experience as a reporter, was in Chicago. So, yeah.
Where were we even going after I put that side
AJ
note in?
McQueen.
There we go. Back to AJ McQueen.
Back to AJ McQueen. So if I had to describe his style, it is Common, Kanye West, first 3 albums, and Kendrick Lamar. If they had a rap baby, it's him. That's how cold he is. And when he came to St. Louis, I was just had to interview him. And how I found out is watching the news. Fox News, don't fight me. It's always good to know what the other person is saying and thinking. We got to stay 2 steps ahead, folks. So watching Fox News, local Fox News, and he was being interviewed, I believe it was by Kim Hudson. And I literally stopped what I was doing when I heard AJ McQueen. I was like, it was like one of those, like, ran to the TV, and I was like, he's in St. Louis. Let me find who I know that knows him, and how can I get an interview with him? And it happened within minutes.
That's awesome.
And that show, it was at the Dark Room. And when he got on the stage, everybody cheering like, yo, what's up? We so glad you home, yada, yada, yada. And he said, if you listen to Lil Baby, Da Baby, or any of them, this show ain't for you. And I was like, yo, I'm in the right place. Like, I was just so excited that rap and artistry and hip hop is making its way back. Like, and not to diss the other rappers, but they are not my style. My generation, for the most part, now I can't speak for everybody that's in their late 30s, early 40s. That's just not us. We don't listen to it. It's for those folks whose ears that it was created for. It's not for my ears. So I was so happy to see him perform. That was one story that I was really, really excited about. Another one was about a botanist at the botanical garden, a black botanist. Never met a black botanist. Didn't know that black people was even in that field. And talking with her was just so eye-opening and so educational. That was a great experience talking with her. Man, there are a lot of stories that I was excited about writing. One, because my editor is super chill, super laid back. I have the luxury of basically writing about whatever I want.
That's so awesome.
So when I have an idea, I'm already excited about it because it's something that I have an interest in. And I think other people might have an interest in it. And so I write about it. Yeah, I can't think. I mean, I have a list. There's so many. But that AJ McQueen definitely comes to mind.
I'm going to have to go check that out.
Please. His music is so dope. It's everything. It really, really is. Like, he's like a Black Panther that raps.
And so to add on a little bit more to Concerning, as much as, we're talking about the highlighting of individuals and a lot of these great stories, I'm curious on what are some of the different topics that you've been seeing that might be coming up that are concerning to you that people need to be informed about? Not to put you on the spot, but it's more so of just because I think, the purpose also of this conversation is to really make sure that folks are informed about what's going on. And because don't be looking all types of crazy when it hits the fan and it's too late.
It's too late. So are you thinking locally or nationally?
We can do both.
Okay.
If there's anything that, there's recent that comes to your mind.
So locally, of course, with the new election, and I'm so grateful that we got some new fresh blood in there with our aldermen. But I hear a lot of concerns about our wards being condensed the way that they have. And will people needs be met? Are these wards too big for this one person to be over?
Because what is it, 75,000, no, 20,000 some people?
That's a good one. I should know that, but I don't. What I do know is that we went from 28 to 14, right? Yeah, and so talking with some of the elected officials that weren't technically, elected yet until all the votes got counted in, that was one question that I asked them, like, how do you plan on meeting the needs of your constituents? It's a lot of people, and you can't satisfy everybody. Somebody's always going to have something to say. Somebody's always going to have a complaint. How do you plan on meeting all of these needs of these folks? And so that's a concern that I hear on a regularly with our wards being, less, but much bigger than what they were before. Another concern that I hear, is these central corridors being all merged. And folks who live outside those new development areas not getting a piece of that new development pie. So if you think about it, areas like where the NGA is, that's becoming a central corridor now. It's becoming this area where there's a lot of new development, gentrification, like we have to be honest, it is. But there's neighborhoods that are connected. Now you have the Delmore Divide. Am I grateful that it's not the Delmore Divide anymore? Absolutely. But does it have to be the Delmore Divide by pushing people out? All of these areas, the West End, Goodfellow, Holdemont, Blackstone, those areas now are called the West End. 5 years ago, that was just the hood. You see what I'm saying? But now there's development happening in these areas,
It's a shift in narrative.
It's a shift in narrative, and these neighborhoods, which, like I said, I'm grateful, these pockets the lines are being blurred. Why? We got the new soccer stadium. We got this football team. We have the NGA. We're going to have a black museum, African-American black museum, very soon. Rankin is expanding. So, of course, they want to make these areas attractive. I get that. I totally get that. Let's just make sure we keep the people there that have been there and not push them out.
People first.
People first. Just because you want to redo something doesn't mean you have to push somebody out. You can redo it with them being there. Let them get a chance to experience this development that you are so excited about. I'm sure they're excited about it too. They want to be a part of it too. And so that's another concern that I hear. Folks being pushed out of their communities to beautify St. Louis. And folks are saying, well, what is our mayor doing? What is she doing about it? Are these new elected officials going to stand up for us? It's concerns that I hear on a regular. I just recently moved to what's considered now downtown because that line has been pushed. You know, lines are being pushed back to make these neighborhoods that wasn't a part of this development now a part of it. The Grove at one point was the area that you did not want to live in. That was considered the hood, in all honesty. But parts of the Grove now has been called Forest Park South. Really? You're going to tack Forest Park South on that so that you can up the rent? So that you can up the price of this house that's being sold? Because that neighborhood, that part of that neighborhood used to be called the Grove. Now it's called Forest Park South. And so when I'm driving around St. Louis, I'm noticing these things that was not like that 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Lines are being blurred. Communities are shifting, and it's happening very quickly. It's happening faster than people can even keep up with. The West Side was that neighborhood in between the Central West End and the Delmar Loop. You know, you had that pocket where it was super, impoverished. Crime was at an all-time high. There's a house on, and I just saw it recently. It's at Kings Highway and Etzel. No, I lied. That's Kings Highway. So Page, right at the intersection on one of those little side streets.
Right.
And that house is going for like $400,000 in that neighborhood. That's considered the West End now. Very interesting. And people are concerned. People are really concerned about that.
And I think it's good that you brought that up, and thank you so much for sharing that, because that's what this is about. It's making sure that folks are informed, and obviously the work that you all are doing at the St. Louis American is to make sure that folks are informed about what's going on in the community, and hopefully what are the next steps. How do you get involved? Who do you need to talk to? Because, if these things are changing as rapidly as they are, then folks need to be prepared, to be able to say, how do we take care of our community? How do we take care of ourselves? And if we do have to move, where do we go?
Where do we go? If you notice, and I think me and you talked about this, the folks are being pushed out of the city. Where are they going? North County.
North County, yeah.
They're going to North County. I have never seen so many houses go up for like a Section 8 in those areas that would have frowned at a Section 8 house being in their community.
Right.
20 years ago, that was an absolute hell no. But now it's so common. And it's people are being pushed further out of the areas that they want to attract more people in, attract more tourists. Why? They bring money. Attract the influential people down to the neighborhood. Why? They bring money. It's a business. I get it. We have to make money. We need money to survive. But people first. I feel like you can do both. You can do both, for sure. And for the folks who are like, well, what do I do? That new alderman that you have, make sure you stay on their heels. Do not let up. Hold them accountable to everything that they said they were going to do. Hold your mayor, your elected officials, all of them, Hold them all accountable to the things that they told you they were going to do. Go to the community meetings. Make sure that you stay abreast of what is going on in your neighborhood specifically. I'm such an advocate for that.
Are there any particular platforms that you would recommend for folks just to stay on top of stuff like that?
Kelly McGowan, she is on her stuff when it comes to keeping St. Louis community, city and county aware of what's going on, in particular with elected officials. Please follow her on every social media platform that she is on. She also has this really cool animated series that covers all of this different, like, what your government is supposed to do. What is the mayor's job? Like, she breaks it down in these very ABC ways that anybody, a small child, can understand it. So I would definitely say follow her. And if that's not what you want to do, like I said, stay on your elected official heels. Mm-hmm. Go on St. Louis, stlouis.mo/gov website. Find your alderman, get their number, call them.
Go to the meetings.
Go to their office. They're for you. They work for you. It's not the other way around. Mm-hmm. And some of us think that for whatever reason, or get intimidated because this is an older person. They work for you. And make sure they are working for you.
Also, shout out to Kelly McGowan. She's also been on the Speak of St. Louis podcast. She does stuff here also at the Contemporary Art Museum St. Louis as well too. So make sure you're keeping up with her work.
She is a total rock star.
Thank you, Kelly.
We love you, Kelly.
I hope you're listening to this episode. Yeah. So thank you for sharing all that. And I think that's just a perfect way of just making sure that people are informed of taking something from the snapshot from the news and from the paper, and taking that and being able to be informed about what's going on so that they can ask officials, hey, you said this, and that. I just read such and such. Is this true? What's the
dealio? Not to date myself, right? What's the dealio?
Yeah,
what's this all about? Talk to me. Yeah, right. We should. That's all right.
Got to hold folks accountable for what for what's happening here, especially if we're going to be talking about a St. Louis that is equitable, that's responsible, but then also that's accountable as well too.
Absolutely. And I don't care what you look like. Listen, that's not an issue for me. You can be green with purple spots. If you got my vote because of what I believed you were saying and you don't do it, it's a problem.
Right.
It's going to be some smoke in the city.
You heard it from Ashley Winters first. Don't mess with her now.
Don't mess with me. Don't mess with my vote, because that is near and dear to my heart.
For sure. And then just to shift gears a little bit too, so because we've talked a lot about journalism and writing and everything in between, I'm just curious, what else is Ashley passionate about? What else do you like to do? What else are you like? What are the things that outside of when you are knee deep in the media game, what are the things that excite you and that you're passionate about?
So my new passion is gardening, specifically growing food. Nice. My goal one day is to acquire land where I can grow fresh produce and be able to donate it. I don't want to sell it. That's not my ministry. It is to donate it in neighborhoods and zip codes that are now food deserts. So I recently bought a house.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So my mom, gotta love her, she has this huge backyard. And when she knew that I was like looking to purchase a home, I was like, but my backyard not gonna be that big, so can I like grow my stuff in your backyard? And she was like, yes. So I have 2 apple trees. I have a blackberry bush. a raspberry bush, a fig tree, and a blueberry bush. So I'm so excited.
That's so cool.
Like last year was my first year producing anything. That was a raspberry bush. So this year I'm excited to see what grows. Like, I'm a farmer. Never thought that. I've never been the type of person that like dirt and worms and bugs and none of that. But it is something about the soil and growing something out of it that it connects me. And not to sound like this nerd, but I am. I feel like I'm connected to my people that came from Mississippi by growing produce. I feel like if my grandmother was still living, my maternal grandmother especially, she would be so proud. And not saying that she wouldn't be proud of what I'm doing now, but she grew up in Arkansas on a farm. Her family owned land, and she would be like, "Go ahead, baby. Go ahead." And I would be able to hear her voice saying like, "I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you, baby. Go ahead." So that's my new passion. And volunteering is another passion of mine. Every now and again, I volunteer at Cardinal Ritter College Prep, teaching journalism. I will admit I've been slacking. Work has been crazy, but I love giving back to young people, and especially in a field that I'm so passionate about, because we need more folks to pay attention on how the news is being told and how it's being portrayed. Like, I just notice things when I'm watching these segments, and I'm like, that is so effed up how you just told this story. And so I notice a lot of that, and we need to get our young people eyes and ears open to that so that they can be aware and call out these folks.
Well, we definitely appreciate you not only one being active in the community, but then also being active with the youth in that way too. And so also when you start growing all the blackberries and the apples and stuff, I got to come over and I got to come over and check it out.
My mom is so welcoming.
I got to meet Mama Winters.
Right?
I got to,
she
the
is
full
their
thing.
mama. She is their mom. Be like, "Come on, baby. What did you eat? Are you hungry?"
Then I'm right at home then.
she's that mom.
It ain't nothing but a word.
Right? She's that mom. I'm so excited. Like, they're already in fruition, like leaves, and my apple tree just budded some flowers. First time that's ever done that. So that means in a couple of years I'll be producing apples because the flowers have already come.
So exciting.
I'm so excited.
Definitely send me pictures once it happens.
Yeah.
So as we are wrapping up, we have 2 questions that we ask every guest.
Be a main. Jesus, be on the main line.
2 questions, not hard questions. The first question is, 1, what do you love most about St. Louis? And 2, what do you most want to see change?
I got to take a pause on that one because
Okay.
that's loaded. What do I love most about St. Louis? We go hard for our city, the good, bad, and the ugly. Nobody outside of St. Louis can say shit about St. Louis. We will knock your head off. And I love that about St. Louis. We can gripe and complain all day long, but when it hits the fan, we will come together and set some shit on fire. So that's what I love about St. Louis. We go hard. Like, the amount of people that I know literally with St. Louis skyline tattooed on them lets me know how hard we go for our city. St. Louis, and I told you this, St. Louis is like that bad boyfriend, right? That's how I describe That's how I describe my relationship with St. Louis. You love him, you see so much potential, you just want him to do the best, and he'll be doing good, just enough to keep you off his back, and then he do something you like, God dog it, you back to that shit. I just had this conversation with you. Like, that is St. Louis for me. I love him, and I'm not gonna leave him.
I'm gonna stick beside.
I'm gonna stick with him, hell or high water. I'm not leaving him. That is my relationship with St. Louis. You can talk bad. Listen, I can complain about him, but you better not say 2 words about my city. It's gonna be hell to pay. That's what I love about my city. Absolutely love. We will go hard. We're going to gripe and complain, and we're going to keep it in-house. Let some outsiders say something, it's a problem. It's a problem. So that's one thing I love. What I would like to see changed in St. Louis is our mentality of not holding that bad boyfriend accountable. It's a gift and a curse. And it sounds very hypocritical, but we have to hold St. Louis accountable for the things that we know better. Like, we know better. So why are we not doing better? It's not like we don't know. It's not. That's not the case. For whatever reason, we are choosing as a society that lives in this city not to do better. We need to hold that bad boyfriend accountable to the things that's going on. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Be careful for the bad boyfriends out there, y'all. Be careful.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying stick with them, that's just how I describe my city. Mm. Yeah.
It's funny because on episode 0, and I think I used that from originally, I said that it was a love story. Mm-hmm. And so I like how it is that.
It is a love story.
Very much so. There's the highs and lows and everything in between.
And is that not life? That's life.
Life is St. Louis.
The highs and lows. When it's high, it is very high. 314 day was the best 314 day I've ever experienced. That was like, oh my God, he brought me flowers. We went on a date. We went out to dinner. Like, Young Dip, one of the co-founders of 314 Day, which if you haven't met him, have you?
I have not.
Get him on this show.
Bet. We're going to make it happen.
The next day, he announced there was no homicides in St. Louis on 314 Day. I thought that was so beautiful because it's like, why can't we have that kind of love all the time? Like, we literally came together to celebrate our city, and there was so much love and so much pride in being from the 314 that it was no beef. It was no drama. Nobody was getting killed. It was none of that. And when he made that post, I was like, dang.
Like the song from Nappy Roots, we gonna have a good day. And like, all my homies gonna ride today.
But that was that moment where I was like, see, this is why I'm not gonna leave.
And it shows that it can happen.
It can happen. If we can take that same euphoric feeling of 314 Day.
Over some digits.
Literally. Over some digits. If we can take that same feeling that we have for our city and the folks that live in it for one day, why can't that be carried out through the week?
We only got 364 more.
Why can't that be carried out in the policies that are written for this city? Why can't this be carried out for the youth that live in this city? Why can't it be carried out for the unhoused? Like, why can't that same pride and love be carried out for everyone that lives here? Mm-hmm. We know we can do it. That's what I'm saying. We know better. Sometimes we choose not to do better.
Right. But I think what I'm also glad about is even though we don't do it sometimes, we have individuals like yourself and so many others that are in position to tell that story the way that it's supposed to be told. And I think that in itself is so powerful, and I'm so glad, one, not just to know you, but to know that places like the St. Louis American are telling this authentic story that will allow us to be able to, for all of us, not just black folks, for all of us to be able to see St. Louis in a different light than what it has been before.
Absolutely.